Welcome back to the Eric Krown Crypto channel. Wishing you a happy and healthy start to this nice Saturday morning over here from a very bright and sunny Helsinki, Finland. It's actually plus degrees right now, so everyone's feeling good. There's more smiles on the face until you start to read the news, and then it's like, uh-oh, what's actually happening over here? Anyways, I wanted to follow up on the weekly closure that we got for CME and also the short and medium-term time frame analysis that we provided yesterday, of which we did initiate the downside validation conditions below 40,500, which did initiate a move to the monthly open, sorry, not the monthly open, but the February monthly open on the old backfill down about 38,500. And that leads us into kind of where we're at right now. So with all of that in mind, I don't want to waste too much time today. I do want to let you know that the premium features on the Krown trading application are now live. You can learn more about them in the Learn More tab over here. There is a link in the description below as well. Basically gives you more pertinent data on a faster time feed, and also, yes, access to the Jewel Light indicator as well. Anyways, and also the newsletter, which I should definitely let you know, because Mr. Roger has been absolutely, he's just been incredible with his writing. He's been incredibly accurate as well. Anyways, let's get into the actual price action charts today. I think that this is going to be a more or less short one. I want to first follow up on the last, basically like 72 hours of analysis. So essentially, once Bitcoin broke above 39,500, that did initiate targets for us back up to the $45,000-ish level, of which we were then going to look at, but only look at, validation for continuation from there, with either a full hour closure above $45,000 or a daily closure above $44,500. None of those were met, and we did say that, hey, what's most likely from this region, this blue box right here, is a pullback. I mean, it's quite literally just testing the prior few highs from the last month and a half right here. You know, it's most likely to pull back. But if Bitcoin were to end up being bullish, we would have expected a higher low at no less than the 0.5 Fibonacci retracement right here. This is where we were yesterday. So we were looking for a pullback. We got the pullback, and then the validation conditions for what would have been a higher low within this region, which, to be fair, Bitcoin did bounce about $1,000 right here, but the validation conditions for this constituting a higher low were certainly not met. The validation conditions for that were essentially at minimum an hourly closure back up about 42,700. Of course, Bitcoin got rejected a little, or well below there, to be fair. And while it did have $1,000 bounce, that, you know, that is meaningless. That is why validation conditions are incredibly important, and really how I want to, you know, differentiate the content on this channel compared to other channels, because, you know, you can't just have like a fucking plan that's one way. You know, obviously there's a multitude of things that can happen at any given moment in time, and so that is why validation and invalidation conditions are absolutely critical. Anyways, the next set of setups that we're looking at were below the 618 retracement right here, which is 40,500 or so on even a lower term time frame closure, of which we did get. That did initiate targets down to February, the prior month. So that was February. Okay, yes, indeed. February open, also the white 20 simple on the monthly right here. This is going to be a lot more interesting when we come into the end of the month, but for right now, I would really hold off on saying anything more damning in this particular case, just because it's too early in the month. I mean, we're still within the first week of March, so I don't think it's appropriate to say just yet, but if we were to go off the prior monthly analysis based off of this chart right here, yes, that's still very much relevant. And if Bitcoin does close below the 20 simple at the end of this month of March, then, well, that would be my conditions for major downside macro continuation. Until then, I don't think it's very wise to be getting too ahead of ourselves right now. And while we actually didn't see that target hit on CME because it closed before that move was actually made, we certainly do see it over here on spot price action. So what does that lead us into the short-term timeframes for right now? Well, Bitcoin is coming all the way back down. I've actually taken a bit of a retracement right here as well from the whole range, from the last low that we saw from February 24th to the high of this current run. You can see that Bitcoin is kind of basing off the 382 right now. I do expect a little bit of a short-term bounce, but just like yesterday, a little bit different than yesterday, this short-term bounce, you know, I would be looking for it to essentially be range bound into another lower high. As long as Bitcoin's especially below just about 41,100 right here, you know, this is, well, not the best setup for the Bulaws, let's say. But yeah, you know, short term, we could very easily see, you know, $1,000 bounce from about 39,000 to 40,000, or maybe a little bit over 40,000 bucks. My main message is that I'm essentially looking at this as short term, likely to produce more continuation to the downside as long as Bitcoin's below 41,200 actually on even a medium term time frame closure. We do see momentum oscillators like stochastic momentum starting to turn around. They're getting quite critical right here, as you can see on 4 hour stochastic momentum will turn back up with with any sort of a closure above 39,000 bucks. That has another 3 hours, 55 minutes, and 26 seconds left to go. But you will also notice that HVP and also BBWP, representing volatility, are starting to hit extremes here, getting very, very close to extremes. So I'm looking at this as a corrective move, essentially. And if you are in the program, I uploaded a video earlier this week about corrective versus continuation sort of analysis with momentum oscillators versus volatility indicators. This would be kind of an example right here that I do think that we're setting up for. So if it is going to be a corrective move, then within the context of our current trend, well, probably looking for a lower high, and then perhaps continuation into next week if that is going to happen. Anyways, I do have one source of hopium here, though. One source of hopium. It's a small one, but it does exist. But let me first get through the lower term timeframes over here. I just want to see if the other lower term timeframes are starting to turn around as well as far as momentum goes. 3 hour stochastic momentum will turn up above 39,120. Bi hourly will turn. It is actually already up and will continue up above 39,000 bucks. So bi hourly and 4 hour are pretty much in the same area. In fact, they kind of all are for that we've seen thus far. And hourly is also basically in the same posturing as the other ones, and will be remaining with upside as long as Bitcoin's above 38,800. So I do suspect that Bitcoin is within the context of a bounce here. Again, we did hit a kind of a major area, that being the monthly backfill. And also the 20 simple, going to be a nice area for a bit of a weekend bounce, I do suspect. Here's the thing though. When we get into the other relatively higher term timeframes compared to what we just looked at, things do start to change around quite rapidly. We do see that daily stochastic momentum will be remaining to the downside, or actually turning to the downside and rejecting the bullish control zone in this case, with any sort of a closure below 41,750. And if we do go over here, and this one really matters to me right now, especially the 5-day, because we will see the 5-day close not today, but tomorrow alongside the weekly. And if the 5-day does close basically below 39,750, we will see the 5-day turn down, reject getting out of the bearish control zone, so essentially remaining within bearish control. And, well, I would at minimum be looking for another test back down around, our current lows from the past couple months here. So that would be in your, mid-ish $30,000 territory. Now, I did say that there'd be 1 point of hopium here. I guess that this is somewhat relevant. Let me pull up a fresh chart here. Actually, I kind of just gave it away right there, but we can even do a better job in the shorter term timeframes right here. We don't need any indicators or anything like that. What we need is some magical lines. So the magical lines of peace and prosperity are going to show the way. And for right now, Bitcoin does still have higher lows coming off these lows right here and the same highs. So this would be an example of a potential ascending triangle. What would invalidate this more importantly and initiate some pretty nasty downside targets for the BULAs? That would be a daily closure below your last low. In this case, about just under 37,000 bucks would do it for me. And then very likely going to retest those wick lows that you saw from late January, and probably set it up for more continuation to the downside over time. But hey, as long as Bitcoin is kind of running this area right here, that is still within the context of things. And again, short-term timeframes, are looking good for a little bit of a short-term bounce here. So, what's most likely to happen over the weekend? Maybe something like this where it bounced up a little bit. Probably getting like a little bit too ahead of ourselves right there. That would take us all the way up to the 13th of March. So maybe not that much, maybe like this. There we go, still at the 8th. Okay, well, whatever. It's the best we can do for right now. Then maybe come back down for an official retest and then another potential higher low. If you see something like that, that would be another sort of point for the BULAs there. But still, the major conditions for continuation to the upside are unchanged for the last couple of months here. I know it's a bit of a somber detail. I also know that it's kind of a boring detail as well, because people are going to probably generally, I would imagine like the average person would just be like, Krown, you've been repeating the same thing for the past couple of months. Well, yes, but that's because this is relevant. I mean, this is what's been keeping us from getting full on moon boyish. Yes, there have been certainly setups above there, but for right now, until Bitcoin closes a daily above 44.5 or a 4 hour above $45,000, there's no validations to be had there. And while I would still have the same targets if Bitcoin does close above there, that being into the mid to low $50,000 territory in the following weeks, it all hinges upon that validation fact. So I think this is a good time for me to sort of reiterate, when it comes to trading, like, it's always going to run off of setups like these, or it's always going to run off of setups that are derived from statistics and probabilities and something that's tangible that initiates that setup to begin with. And in this case, you do have something that's tangible, it just hasn't been validated. Now, we would have a theoretical technical target based off this, seeing as we do have a technical formation. And guess what? That would be pointed up towards basically 55, 56,000 bucks. So it's still within the cards. I think this kind of best case scenario for blue laws right now is like a short-term bounce, probably scares the shit out of everyone to, early next week, comes back down around here, 38,000 bucks, and then puts another higher low, and then does some bonking action to the upside, some busting action to the upside. But again, it all hinges upon this region right here. Until then, anything is a lower high, or sorry, anything less than that is another lower high, and more than likely setting up for a more downside continuation, contingent upon the next major validation condition, which would be below this low right here, which is again basically around 37,000 bucks. Is there anything else that I want to get out right here? We're 10 minutes into this video. I guess we can just briefly look at the underlying market dynamics. I suppose that one thing that would be kind of on the Bula side here is that the global open interest didn't really hit an extreme level before this last downside move with that last high at 45,000 bucks. So, do I expect like a humongous washout from here? Statistically speaking, or historically speaking, no. We typically see this get above around about 14 billion before playing out those pretty nasty downside moves. In this case, we only saw it get up to about 12 and a quarter on that last high. Sorry, not even 12. Wait, is this right? 11 and a half. Jesus Christ, man, 11 and a half. That's pretty minimal. On top of that, funny rates, well, they are positive, and in the short term, ever so slightly negative. Again, this would be more on the bearish side, to be fair, because it is so small, and on the daily feed, it is ever so slightly positive. But this is really splitting hairs. I don't think that is going to matter too much, or at least play like a major portion of my current analysis. And fear and greed index is obviously more on the fearful side after this last move. So, could this be theoretically possible? Yes. Is it far away from being validated? Yes. So, please do understand where I'm kind of coming at it from right now. If I'm just kind of wrapping up my thoughts in the short term here, short term, more likely to bounce, maybe after a few more wicks down around that 38.5 region. Bounce targets can come up very easily to about 40,000 bucks. But as long as Bitcoin's below 41,000, I don't look at that as anything, demonstrably different, basically. Different. That's what I'm looking for. And I would expect, another move to the downside, probably into next week, testing around what would be that region that we just spoke about in like the mid to low $37,000 territory. Or sorry, no. That is incorrect. Let's go back here. Where would it be? It would be actually more around like $37,500 to $38,000. In invalidation below about $37,000, and we expect bounces right around there. Until then, I really do want to refrain from speaking anymore about the higher term timeframes, simply because it's a little bit too early in the month, and we do have a lot of conflicting signals going on right now. So ultimately, until we get validation on one of those major setups, I'm just looking at short-term stuff myself, and I'm not I'm not too proud to admit that, man. When I don't have like a very strong idea on the higher term timeframes, which I don't right now. Or at least I don't see any like like major setups that have been validated or invalidated just yet. I just focus on the lower term timeframes, which is kind of where I want to be anyway. So, this is just a reminder, not only to myself, but, maybe you out there as well, is that if you don't see a setup, if something isn't meeting your criteria for an entry on a trade, you don't need to do anything. And the reason why I bring this up is not only because, I deal with this myself, but there's been a few questions in the Discord that have kind of made me reflect upon that, where people have essentially asked something along the lines of, what are you doing right now? Like, what are you doing here? And it's just like, well, I'm only looking at lower term timeframes. I don't have anything on the higher term timeframes. Look, 45,000 bucks to the upside, $37,000 to the downside. As long as Bitcoin's between there, I don't have any major calls to be made, or unless we get like a monthly below basically 38 would also do it for me, but it's like still another almost 4 weeks away, so just not relevant for right now. Anyways, hopefully that was in some way helpful. I will be signing off now. We'll be back on tomorrow. Tomorrow I will focus a little bit more on the higher term timeframes in preparation for the next few weeks to come, but ultimately I suspect that most of the action this weekend is going to be postured around the lower term timeframes. So hopefully that was helpful, and hopefully I see you soon. Take care.